please tell me about how you mentioned something about being the only sort of girl or the first girl from UP to be coming to Rourkela, but really, how did that decision, happen? Because
Oh, yeah.
you also had MNIT Allahabad, right? Is that
Yes.
the
Yeah. So I don't know if you remember, or I don't know if this was only UP thing, but in that year, before that, you had to like go and they would show you all the options that were there, and you could pick one option. But I think it was just that specific year in UP, they changed the model where you had to write down all of your preferences
okay?
on a piece of paper. And so you didn't get to decide, oh, I'm getting MNIT computer science, I'm getting electronics here, I'm getting this there, and then pick one of those, right? You didn't have that luxury. I don't know why they did that. I thought it was a very stupid idea, but anyways, at that time, so then I had to figure out like, how am I going to like, it's like a poker game, right? Like now you're trying to figure out like how to place your options. So, and maybe a little bit of background. So I think, like I said, fourth grade computer science, that sort of became my thing. I was like, okay, I'm definitely interested in this. And then my dad actually got me like, there was brilliant tutorials at that point of time, if you remember, like, because we were in Jhansi, there was like no tutoring or going anywhere and talking to anybody happening, right? We just had to like get material. So he got that, and I think there was biology as a part of that. And I was like, okay, this is definitely not my thing. I'm not doing biology whatsoever. But semiconductors was a course that I really enjoyed. So I would say like after computer science, like semiconductors was something that I was like, the whole chip design stuff at that point of time, I really enjoyed that. So I said, and then I think at that time, like electronics there was this tussle always between electronics and computer science, right? So electronics was starting to like tear up a little bit because India was getting a lot more semiconductor industries at that time. So anyways, the background is because then when I put my requirements, I pretty much put all NITs with electronics, all NITs with computer science, all NITs with like, everything else after. And I really like, I told my dad, if I don't get the first two, I'm not going. Like those are the only two I'm going to go for. And so that's how I ended up getting Rourkela Electronics. And my uncle actually used to work in Rourkela Steel Plant, but the year I came, he actually left. So that's why I was familiar with Rourkela, that there is a place called Rourkela and there's like NIT called Rourkela.
AEI, that, because I will tell you what happened with me. One, the process you're saying is very similar to how AIEEE's process was there. You had to put it into a list format, and then you have your branch preferences in terms of like computer, and then the college ranking. So you probably put colleges and these branches at the top. Go in that manner, right? Ours was a little bit different, where there was a proper sort of what do you call counseling, where you could see in real time which seats have already been taken up by people who are higher in rank than you, which ones are available, and then you can make that choice of the college and the branches. So a little bit visibility into how the seats are filling up, right? Real time, that counseling setting.
I definitely say that's the better process, because then you know what you're trying to pick versus this is like a blindfolded poker. You just put it out there and
right. And somehow the electronics at NIT Rourkela wasn't taken because the branch name in our college was Applied Electronics and Instrumentation Engineering.
Oh, is it? Okay.
IE. It wasn't ECE, or many people.
Oh, I actually didn't know this.
Yeah, so that's why it wasn't really. My rank was like 43 or 44, and even NIT Jamshedpur electronics was filled at rank 21 in my year, right? But somehow this electronics branch was not taken.
Was not.
Just did not know that it's named different at NIT Rourkela. That's what I'm asking. Whether you knew it's called AEI and...
No, I actually didn't know. I don't even know if I put that on my form. Yeah, I don't remember now. Yeah.
Okay. So how was it? Did you find any difficulty in settling up at NIT Rourkela?
Lots of difficulty. So I think, again, a little bit of background. So what had happened is after I got the, selection was done, after that, my mom actually needed to have surgery. And our understanding was September is when college starts. So I think, I don't remember exactly, but July end or August, my mom had surgery. And the idea was I can stay with her for a month, and then, my dad will go and drop me. So my mom has surgery, I think 2 days later. Somebody comes to see her in the hospital and they say, "Oh, Akhila, you're still here." I'm like, "What do you mean by you're still here?" They're like, "Oh, we read in the newspaper the college started." So that's not possible. So then my dad went, they talked to, and somewhere in the newspaper it said college starts August 8th. And so we were in a very tough situation because my mom just had surgery, she couldn't move. And somebody had to come drop me, right? But there was nobody to take care of my mom. So last minute, my aunt actually came to take care of my mom. Then we had to pack up, and I had to do whatever shopping and packing because my mom was not there. And then my dad came, and my dad only came for a day, half a day almost, because he wanted to get back ASAP. So as a result, I actually joined college. I don't remember exactly, but maybe 1 week or 10 days late. And people had already come in at that point of time. And just that little amount of time, I felt like I was a complete outsider. One, I came from UP and everybody gave me this hard time about why I came and stuff. But then there was no rooms left. So, trying to figure out what's the last bed that was left that I could take and stuff. And I think even the day that I came to hostel, some event was happening, everybody was gone. So I was literally alone. Anyways, I think that, and then my dad also left, right? And I didn't really want to say anything when my dad left because I know they were in a tough situation. So I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. So he was like, okay, I'm going to somehow figure this out. But yeah, that first 1-2 weeks, I was and somehow even that week, I felt like everybody else had become friends. And then I was trying to fit or find my way into this whole puzzle. And that took a good 1 month for me, even to and then I think the other part that had happened was, so in electronics, we had the first roll numbers were all taken by in-state people, right? And then all the roll numbers after were out of state. So I think it was me, Rajesh, Saurabh, and you, right? I think that was some number, 20 something. But anyways, so I think the second half of the engineering thing, I was the only girl. And Amika still hadn't moved. So I was the only girl in that group. And I remember that blacksmithy thing that we had. And this basically comes back to I'm really bad with my hands and not so good. And I just felt so out of place. There were these guys that I did not know. In the hostel, I did not know anybody. I felt like I couldn't ask anybody for anything. And that blacksmithy thing, I think I did it one day. I went back and my hands hurt like crazy. I couldn't lift my hands. But I just I felt like I had nobody to talk to, right? So I think the first couple of months, till I started making friends, till I figured out my gang, till I started talking to you guys, I just felt completely out of place. And I'm pretty sure everybody else did too, but you only know your own personal experience. And in my personal experience, I was where am I?
It is important to talk about this because I think everyone sort of experienced that in the beginning, right? And then, you joined late. I think sort of joined late too. I joined 3 days before midterm, so I can totally understand.
Right.
Some of the things worked in favor too, because I was put in a room with foreign students. So a couple of them were from Nepal, one from Bhutan.
Right.
So that room had a lot of privilege attached with it in terms of we were not supposed to switch off the lights. We can keep it on all night. It was the ragging period, etc., where you had certain norms, right? So there were privileges as well. And then we can talk a little bit more about my experience all, but I can totally understand. And I think it's important to talk about these things, right?
I think one thing I want to add to that, and we'll come to my master's experience also, but I think one thing that I learned from that is anything new that you do, any new place that you go, there's always this discomfort period. That was the first time we experienced it, but since then it has happened so many times in my life, anytime I've changed stuff, that at least knowing that it's going to be uncomfortable makes it slightly easier in the future, right? Because any change that you make, it's always extremely uncomfortable.
Yes, yes. Very
Yeah.
well, very well said.
Yeah.
Uh, I I I wasn't aware that you got a fellowship at IISC, and I saw it in your LinkedIn profile. Can you
Okay.
talk a little bit about it? What was
Yeah, actually, it like everything else in my life, that was also a chance occurrence. And I want to give some background on that because if anybody else is listening to this, I want to sort of talk about how these things happen. So in NIT, there was a lecture which was done by a professor who was a pass out of NIT, who was a professor at University of California, Riverside. He was visiting, and the reason I'm mentioning that is it was not attended too well, even though it was mentioned that somebody is visiting like this. At that time, everybody's like, "Kaun jayega yaar," types, nobody really wanted to go for any of these things. But I think it's important, like particularly if you're academically inclined, if you want to make engineering your future career, I think it's very, very important to go to these things. So yeah, I think I ended up attending that. And in that, he talked about image processing and wavelet transform. And that was the first time I'd heard about image processing or wavelet transform, anything which was outside our coursework, right? You know me, like any new engineering idea that I'm very excited about it. So light bulbs went off. So that was it. That sort of ended there. And then I had no idea about internships, IISC. I didn't even know what IISC was, unfortunately. So Aritra, who was my roommate, she's way more resourceful than I, which I'll come back to that in a bit too. I think being resourceful is important. So she figured out that somebody else was applying for the scholarship. And they hadn't literally shared it with other people, but she heard it through the grapevine. So she came and told me, "Hey, I heard somebody's applying for this IISc internship. Why don't you give it a try too, since you're interested?" Uh, so I think I pretty much last minute sort of ended up applying for it. And then, they wanted you to put in a paragraph on what you're interested in. And so for me, I just heard this lecture and I was like, it would be interesting if I could learn more about it. So I put that down. And I think because it was so unique and I don't think other people had written about that stuff, I got selected for that internship. Yeah, so I think two things. One, like, I was not really good with like reaching out to people and asking them and saying, what are you doing? Where are you going? What are you applying to? Which has been a problem which I'm trying to rectify. But I think if you are a student, then please do that, go talk to as many people and know what's going on. And then any opportunity that's there to attend any of these lectures or any of that. I mean, if it's not a good lecture, sure, walk out. If it's good, I think we should make the maximum use of the resources that are offered.
Yep, yep, absolutely, absolutely. And Akhila, you were top of the class. You were one of the toppers, probably the topper in our branch, right? But I think what was unique about you was you were also involved in a lot of extracurricular activity. I remember you were part of a dance group. You were captain of the basketball team. You were also the editor of a newsletter we had.
Right.
Uh, the first woman president of the Road Track Club of NIT Rourkela. So many other things that you were part of. So, how important is it to be, exploring things outside of, say, just the
Right.
studies, right? How important was that? And I want you to talk about being the first woman president of
Right.
the track club.
Yeah. So yeah, I think when I was thinking about this question, and I feel like um, everything that I know about leadership is through all of these other activities that I did, right? Everything that I know about people, talking to people, how people behave, how people don't behave, all of that stuff is through these activities. I don't think that, like, my skill set, my engineering skill set was through our classroom, but all of the other stuff, I remember in masters I'd taken a project management course. I'd just taken it for, I just wanted a 4-pointer to make up my grade point. And I remember going to that class and the professor said, I know you guys are here for the grade point, but I'm telling you, when you get out into the world, what I'm teaching you in this class is going to be 90% of what you're going to use. The remaining 10% is what you've learned in all of your courses. And that stayed with me for the longest time. And I think that's pretty much all of these extra. Again, none of that was done. I was just interested in all of those things, which is why I did that. But I'm pretty sure that helped me. And then you talked about Rotary and Rotaract. So being the first woman president of Rotaract, that again, so I guess maybe taking a step back, I was trying to think about like what's my style of leadership, or why do I get chosen as a leader? I'm very much like a nominated leader. I'm since childhood, and it's not been like I've tried. Like I'll be in the class and they'll say, "Okay, why don't you go talk to the teacher for us? Why don't you go like represent us or something like that?" I could like never win an election in my life. Like I just can't like go out there and present myself. On that note, I do want to mention like I think I tried to do like GSEC election for inside the ladies hostel, and I got like one vote. My roommate gave me a vote. So any elections is like totally not in my purview. But nomination somehow seems to happen to me in a lot of places that has happened. So when the Rotaract president election or whatever nomination was supposed to happen, it's a funny story. I actually went late to that event because it was like not even in my thing. I was like, okay, there was a trend. And the reason I'm mentioning that is, that's been, particularly as a woman, when you grow in tech, you see that, right? There are certain kind of people that get elected. And I felt like even Rotaract at that time had like, there were certain personalities that would get elected as president. And I was definitely not that personality. Like I didn't fit in, and being a woman definitely made, I was like, I'm not going to fit in here. So I think the event started at whatever, 5:30 or 5:30 something. And then we went at 7 o'clock. And then when I go in there, everybody's like, why are you so late? Why are you so late? I'm like, why suddenly everybody concerned about me? Like, I'm not a big deal here, right? It's somebody else's elections going on. And they're like, oh, you've been nominated president. I'm like, that can't be true. Like, why would you nominate me president? There are all of these other people that you're supposed to be nominating. So yeah, I think the reason I'm mentioning that is, again, like I said, it was not even in my purview. Like it was not something I campaigned for and said, I want to become like the president of Rotaract. It was just purely like a nomination. But I think what it changed for me was it literally, like that was my first, I would say at that time, large scale experience on trying to bring a disparate set of volunteers together to try and get something done. When you're paying somebody and asking them to do work, it's a completely different thing. You don't need to worry about inspiration. You don't need to worry about, getting people to work together and things like that. But when people are they're purely on a volunteer basis and everybody has their own idea and everybody is as smart as you are, to try and still get them together and then say like, I need this work done, I think requires a different level of skill set. And that was the first time I learned that, because there were certain people who would say things behind my back, wouldn't really do the work. There were other people who were doing the work. And some people are just there for the status of like being in the Rotaract club. Even though it's such a small thing, there were still politics and dynamics there, right? So I think that was my first lesson. So anyways, back to your question on extracurricular activities, I think it's in that microcosm, you can learn that stuff. And leadership is completely practiced after a certain point of time, right? So it's good to like do some of those things so that you can pick up that skill set.
Right. I totally agree with you. Gaining that soft skill, gaining those leadership skills is very important, and pick something that you like, right? You don't have to just do it for the sake of it. Pick something that you enjoy, and then naturally you would learn some of the soft skills, right? In the process. So I'm totally with you. When did you decide to take up MS, or was it pre-decided? And
so before I went to IISC, again, I did not know anything about masters or studying in the US wasn't in my radar. I was going to go do CAT and MBA because that's what everybody else was doing. So my IISC experience was also pretty good. I actually worked with a professor in the physics department, but who was doing some image processing work. Again, a bunch of guys in that lab. And I think initially when I went in, they all sort of like, they were like, fine, she's not going to do great, right? There was that vibe that I got initially that it's like, okay, fine, she's doing something. She's not going to do anything amazing. But then when I finally did my presentation of like the work that I'd done there and I presented, I think they were a little surprised that I was able to figure out stuff and I actually like implemented some things. So then the guys in the lab actually came and told me, they said, why don't you go abroad to do your master's? And I said, what does that mean? So they sort of explained it to me, and they said, you can come here too, but if you are able to go outside, it's actually going to be a really good experience. And so they told me about GRE, they told me about like this exam and all of that. That's how I got to know about it. So when I came back from IISC, I told my dad, I'm not doing CAT, I'm going to do GRE, I'm going to go to the US. He's like, where is this coming from? It was definitely a shocker for them. But yeah, that's really how I got to know that I should go outside and study. And then when I came back to college, I think I was trying to figure out what to do. Again, not many resources, did not know what to do. Then I guess one of our friends suggested, he said, why don't you go talk to the director and say, some of us want to go outside, we want to figure out how to do this. Can you help us with that? So I was like, okay, maybe I'll give that a try. So I go up to Sarangi sir's office. That was my first time up there. And I said, sir, I want like 10 minutes of your time. He said, 10 minutes is a really long time. Do you really want 10 minutes of my time? I said, okay, I'll take 5 minutes of your time. So I went there and I said, some of us are thinking of going to the US to study, but we don't know how to go about doing that. What can we do? I don't know if it was his idea or my idea. I said, can we go to Kharagpur? Because in Kharagpur, they have a big alumni group, and they know how to like apply and, who to apply to, and we can ask them. And he said, yeah, why don't you pick like 6 or 7 students? So I did this whole like selection thing, pick like 6 other people who wanted to go. And then we did a trip to Kharagpur to talk to them. I don't know if he got anything out of it. I don't remember now. But yeah, but I was like mostly trying to like get some knowledge to figure out how to apply, because yeah, I literally was very, very clueless at that point of time as to how to apply or how even like what universities to go to or anything like that.
That's, I'm seeing a pattern here. It's about, you have to sort of create opportunities for yourself, or, at least grab some of the opportunity. If someone is coming and giving a lecture in your college, it does not hurt to just go and see what it is. And if you don't like, just out, but it may open up an opportunity for you.
Yeah.
It does not hurt to go and try out talking to the director of your college, something, and maybe he's willing to help you out, right? So there is that pattern that I see, which is about, being open to such things, and that creates opportunity, and that helps you sort of shape your career, right? And then shape you as an individual. So great lesson there. Before we move on to the next section, is there any story that, like any fun story or any fun story that you want to share from NIT?
Yeah, I don't want to share the stories which will get everybody else into trouble. So I'm trying to think of which is a better story. But there are definitely stories that would have gotten us into trouble. Yeah, actually, I think my most fun, the experiences that I remember the most of all of them are definitely the ones that I did with Rotract. So with Rotract, it maybe I don't call this fun per se, but we had gone to visit like there was a Mother Teresa ashram that was there. That was sort of my first time experience working with like orphan kids and seeing the work that happens there. I think we had once gone to a place with, there was a bunch of truck drivers, and I had to give a speech in Hindi on the use of condoms. And I totally bombed that speech. Like I couldn't speak in Hindi about that subject at all. Like I tried. Yeah, there were I think like these experiences that I had that I got exposed to. I think other than that, like hostel life is just, I mean, I tell everybody like, just being in the hostel, it was like 4 years, like, 10 years compressed into 4 years, right? You got to meet so many different type of people. Like, you were from Bihar, Saurav was from, Gujarat, and everybody like suddenly, so many cultures, you get so many different ideas, and we would discuss all sorts of stuff, right? Like we were discussing Iron Brand. I know you were talking about like the FM radio, and then I was doing some other project on robotics. Like there was so many ideas, there was so much philosophy, there was so much like just growing up happening, there's like crushes, and there's all of that like just happening in like 4 years. And now if you look back, for the amount of experiences that were there, like 4 years is such a small time. But yeah, it gave like experiences worth a lifetime. I've never had that level of, being alive in a certain place, right? Like every day, every moment, there was something happening. There was somebody coming up with an idea. And I think also the fact that we had just converted into an NIT, there was this additional excitement that everybody had. Like, we got to do big things and we got to think of big stuff. Yeah, there was like no limitation on what we could imagine at that point of time. I think all of our conversations, we would just talk everything. And everything was possible, everything like, quantum mechanics was possible and neural networks was possible. Yeah, it was just amazing. Yeah.
See, all of that is now coming to life, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big thing
Yeah.
now. We had a course on neural network in
Yes.
fourth year.
That I love that course.
Yeah.
It was such an amazing course. I think communications and neural networks were my two favorites.
Yep.